Welcome back to I'll Pack My Bags. I'm glad you decided to come to the flip side because now we're talking some fun stuff.
Were we not talking fun stuff before?
Full disclosure, Katie wrote that for me to say. That's why it sounds so silly. That's also why I'm laughing. Okay, dating while traveling. I'm using this term very, very loosely because this could mean a Tinder or a hostel hookup, or it could mean meeting the love of your life abroad. So Lauren is one of the hosts of Somebody Date Us, which is a hilarious but also insightful podcast about the dating adventures of her and her two friends, Carly and Asal. So obviously I had to ask Lauren about some of her dating escapades abroad. You must have at least one.
Okay, so, I mean, I don't have many with, like, exotic men, unfortunately. But when I was in college, I used to work in Spain in, like, between the summer, like, in the summers, as, like, a camp counselor. And so they'd send, like, all these, like, Canadian counselors to these camps in, like, literally the middle of nowhere Spain. You had limited options of like who you could hook up with in the summer. Yeah. But I was like notoriously always that person that like found one of the camp counselors to like date or have an affair with. A Spanish affair with. But like I do feel like traveling brings out like the best side of me. So like I always say like I'm not a person that like loves public affection unless I'm like on a beach in Spain and like everyone else is just like making out and you're just like in the moment. So I like out of the 3 summers I did this, I think there was only one summer that I didn't find a Canadian to be with. Oh. But like the first summer I met this guy at camp and we just like had this like Spanish romance and we just like I feel like when we had so much time off, like we barely really worked. And when we were working with kids, we'd just be like, go play and like sit back and make sure they didn't like kill each other. And so I just remember like how it started was we all went out to like, I mean, they called their clubs like discos there. So we like went out to like a disco one night and we just like, I don't even remember how, but we started dancing and like made out on the dance floor. Like remember when people used to like grind at bars? Like I don't remember the last time I did that, but I was doing it that night.
Whoa.
And after that we were just like in love for like a brief month. It's actually like if you've listened to our podcast, I tell a story about like in one of the episodes tell a story about this like really awkward time I've slept with someone and it was like in Spain under the stars. It in theory should have been romantic, but it was so awkward and it was like only like the 3rd time I'd ever slept with someone and I was like, I don't know what is happening, and it was like so bad we just like never did it again and we just like only made out for the rest of the summer. And then I got back and for some reason thought like this relationship was gonna work out, but it didn't. Like camp life was very different than real life. And I'm glad it probably was a good thing because we probably would have like never had sex again. But then like the second summer there was only like 6 of us. We were like this very remote camp, and so I managed to find this like the one cute guy in like the whole village, which was like population 30.
The village
at like this like festival that was happening, and he spoke like 3 words of English and I spoke 3 words of Spanish, and somehow we fell madly in love for like one night and we made out. And then he stalked me for the rest of the summer. Like, no lie, like he obviously knew where we were because it was like 6 Canadians in this village. And like he would drive by the camp and like would like be in this ski resort that we were at the camp and would just like drive by with the windows down and like look at me. And like it was harmless, I'm sure, but since there was a language barrier, it made it extra creepy.
That's so creepy.
And like one night my boss like knocked on my door and he's like, Lauren, that like, I don't remember what his name was, is outside and he's climbing the trees and looking in the campers' windows, like looking for you and calling your name. And I was like, what would you like me to do about this? Like, I don't want to go outside. Like, you're a man. Can you go take care of this? Like, obviously I'm not sneaking out. I was like in my glasses and like my retainer and like, it's like not ready to like go meet my Spanish fling. Yeah, and at the time, it was, like, the early stages of having a...
I love how you're still like, calling him a fling. He's, like, actively stalking you.
I made out with him once. And And like, this was like before I like actually took my travel blog seriously. It was like before travel blogging was really a thing. I had a travel blog, but it was like, today I like ate at a restaurant, and no details in it. It was like for my parents to read. And I remember writing about my Spanish stalker. I wonder if I can still find it in like the archives. And my mom was like sending me emails and was like, what? Are you okay? Like, what's happening over there? Don't worry,
it's
Mom.
all nonchalant.
Yeah, you're on like dial-up internet being like, no worries. Like, but like those Spanish summers, I don't know. And then the third summer, I also met like a guy and like we dated for a while when we got back. Less like exotic of a story, but yeah, I don't know what it was about Spain. Like, I haven't been back, but like maybe I should. Maybe that's where my lover's waiting for me.
I mean, we were talking about this before we were recording about how, like, especially when we were around that early, like, late teens, early 20s age, Europe was, like, the stomping ground of, like, people who were just finished school.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was, like, gap year heaven, and people would just go and, okay, I'll tell you my experience.
Okay.
I'm on the flip side. I worked in a hostel in Venice, Italy. It was very often a party hostel, and I witnessed things no one
like
ever wants to witness. Like couples. Okay, this is probably the worst one. One night, we all went out, like everyone in the hostel. We come back, and my coworker, who works in the hostel, I go and I open up a closet and he's sleeping, like having sex with this woman who has a boyfriend who's sleeping in the dorm that they're just outside of. And like, I open the closet and I'm like, oh, and close it and like trying to process what I heard. And I'm like, oh my God. Did her boyfriend hear me? Did he hear me?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, like I don't want to be stuck in this. So I just ran away and like hid in my room. And then the next day we're all eating breakfast at the same table. Me, my coworker, this woman, and her boyfriend, who I guess doesn't know that she slept with my coworker who's sitting next to me. And I was like just sitting there like trying not to look like I was freaking
like,
out
so
and
guilty.
waiting for it to like bubble over. And to this day, I don't know. I don't know if the boyfriend ever found out. I don't know if they
like whatever happened to them. Are they married?
No idea.
See, if that happened now, you could totally just be like, okay, I have their name in our system. I'm going to search them.
Yeah.
Like keep tabs on their Instagram and see if they're still together.
I know, right? I could creep and find out. There was also like this couple that they weren't a couple. They like met in the hostel drunk and they went and had sex like in a boat out on the canal right next to the hostel. And people were like calling the hostel being like, there's people having sex right outside your hostel in a boat, and the boat owners like calling us. Like it was a mess.
Well, that's the thing is like when you're staying in hostels, you kind of have to get creative with like where you're gonna hook up. Mind you, like I have never experienced this where like you're in a dorm room and people are hooking up in like one of the bunk beds, but I know people that have experienced that. Like that's like my worst nightmare.
Yes.
Like if I plan on hooking up with someone and I'm staying in a hostel, like we're not coming back to our bunk bed and hooking up. Like it's gonna be somewhere random, like a boat or a closet or an alleyway. Like I don't know.
It's just funny in the context of Venice because like after midnight in Venice, the streets are empty. So like everyone's gonna know.
Yeah,
like it's so quiet. There's no cars. It's only like foot traffic. Like it wasn't a very like conspicuous place as far as Venice goes at all.
But the thing with travel is I feel like it brings out like this wild side of people. Like people are just like, you know, when in Rome, like I would never do this back home. Like can you imagine like meeting someone and being like, let's go like hook up in the alleyway? Like I would never do that. But when you're traveling, you're like, oh, look at this beach or this boat, or like who cares? Like we don't know anyone. Like it'll make a good story.
But it's funny because this is like part of traveling culture that people hate on a lot, which is warranted, is that like people go and they think that they don't need to like have any sort of, not standard, but like be respectful to other people while they're traveling. It's just like no one cares.
Yeah.
And I know that like when I was in Europe, backpackers got so much hate for that because we were all generalized to be like that. And, like, it's kind of warranted. In my experiences working in the hostel, I was like, yeah, this is absurd behavior. Like, none of these Canadians I'm meeting here would behave like this at home.
Yeah.
It's just, like, they don't care because they're in another country and there's no one to, like, police them for it.
And they'll leave, like, the next day and, like, you'll never see the person again and see you later kind of thing.
I have a little anecdote about the one time I went on a date with someone in the Netherlands. This was before my partner and I were together. I was living in the Netherlands, and I met this Dutch guy in a bar. He was nice, and he was like, and Dutch guys are like very polite, so he was like, would you like to come out for dinner with me? And I was like, sure. And I was like still really young and had never been on like a proper date before. Like no one had ever asked me to go on a date with them. So I was like so excited, go on this date with him. All I knew were like stereotypes from North America. So I was like, oh, he's going to pay the bill. Because like that's what I've been taught. Yeah. And then, so you know the phrase going Dutch?
Well, no, but you commented on one of our like podcast things about splitting the bill. And I had no idea what this was. And everyone was like, do you live under a rock? I'm like, I never heard of this before.
Yeah. So the phrase is like based on Dutch people. It's a stereotype that Dutch people will never pay like your bill. So if you like go out for dinner with a Dutch person, the bill is always split. You pay for yourself. And I knew this stereotype and this phrase, but I like didn't think it was real until dinner finished. The date like wasn't good. I was like, I'm never going to see this guy again, but at least he's going to pay my bill. And then he like goes and asks for separate bills. And I was like, it's true. Like they really do
what
go
if,
Dutch.
Like, you're Dutch and you're married? Do you still do the same thing? Even though you like have joint expenses?
All your kids have to pay for themselves.
Yeah. Like, how far does this go? Like,
I don't know. I should ask, like, some of my married Dutch friends. I mean, Lucas and I, like, we're basically married. Like, we live together. We share expenses. But if we go out for a meal, we pay separately.
Yeah.
Is that weird?
No. I don't know.
I
don't think it is. Like, I feel like it's either that when a relationship gets to a certain point, or it's like, I'll pay this time, you pay that time, I'll pay this time. Like, you know, you're taking turns, and it's like, oh, you paid for this, like, I'll pay for that, you know? Like, so it evens out.
We do that sometimes, but, like, for the most part, we're just, like, pay for ourselves.
Yeah.
I feel like it would only ever change if one of us wasn't working. So if, like, one of us was supporting us, then it would be different. But for the most part, we just pay for everything, like, down the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I've totally gone on dating apps when I'm traveling and, like, just to see what's there. But I've never actually... I feel like usually I'm on, like, such, like, an itinerary and, like, doing my own thing. And I'm like, I'm not going to, like, arrange a date with this person. Like, I'm not really, like, that desperate to meet someone. Yeah, maybe I should be. I don't know. But... when I went to Colombia recently, my girlfriend I was traveling with went on Bumble because she was curious. Most of the people were like people not from Colombia. They were like other tourists like us. But she did match with this one guy. And by the time, like, since you're just like not really on your phone, you're not on Wi-Fi and stuff, like by the time he had messaged her, I was like, we should meet up. We were already in like we were on like an island in like the middle of nowhere. And she was like, oh, like, I'm not in, like, Cartagena anymore. Like, we're in San Andreas now. And he's like, oh, like, he's like, I'll fly there tomorrow. Like, there's a flight at this time to come see you. And, like, both of us kind of, like, hesitated. We're like, that would make a really funny story. I'm like, and our hotel room, like, did have, like, a kid's bed. Like, it had, like, a single bed. And, like... But I was also like, what if this guy's like a serial killer? Like, we have we're on like a small island. Like, there's like nowhere to like put him. Like, we can't like I don't even know where he would stay. Like, he would have to stay with us.
Yeah.
Like, but so obviously it like never would. But we hesitated. We're like, I mean, that could make a good story.
Wait, so you didn't do it?
No.
Okay, I was gonna say.
Like, can you imagine? Like, I mean, I'm sure people would.
For sure, I've heard wild stories about people who will like go on dates while they're in foreign countries and like just hook up or like hook up for a place to stay is something I've heard about. Yeah, I don't think I could ever do it.
Yeah, like I said, I'm like never like when I am traveling alone, I'm very happy being alone traveling. Like, I don't even really care if I make friends because I'm like very content doing my own thing.
Yeah.
So I can't imagine being like, maybe I should do it on my next solo trip though. Depending on where it is, because if it's somewhere like too crazy, like I don't think I want to meet anyone on dating apps. But
Have you ever met someone while traveling, like in a hostel, and really liked them and been like, what if this is my person?
No. I feel like, I mean, I've definitely met like cute guys and like guys that I'm like, yeah, like maybe if we met in like regular setting where we could, but usually I feel like for me, they live like, I'm a very practical person.
Yeah.
And especially now that I'm older, like when I was younger, it was like my fantasy to be like, oh, I'm going to marry like a Spanish man. But then like when I got older, I was like, how would I make that work? Like,
yeah.
Like long distance can work for people. And like it could have worked for me when I was like 19. But now I'm like, hey, I don't really want to be like 30 and in a relationship with someone across the ocean. Like,
yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Maybe I should be more open to it though, because I'm still single. So I'm not having any luck with Canadian men. Like, I need to like book a trip to Europe and just like start swiping.
It's interesting you say that, because like my partner and I met in a hostel, and I think the only reason it worked was because we're both Canadian.
Yeah.
So there was actually that thread of like practicality to it that kind of like was the glue. Even though we lived in separate cities for years, we always like would talk, and like we had a relationship going. We didn't call it a long distance relationship really, but like there was that ongoing thread of like knowing it could work if like
how far did he live?
He lived in Windsor.
Okay.
And at the time I lived in Montreal, which is pretty far. Yeah,
it is far.
But like Toronto's in the middle, and now we're both here, so it worked out.
Yeah,
because we wanted it to. But like if he had been from like Brazil, I don't know if that would have worked.
I know. I mean, like you hear stories of it working. Like I know people that are married to people that they met in Spain and they were Canadian or in Korea or whatever. But yeah, I don't know if like my life now would work out if I met someone in like.
Yeah. We met when we were 19.
Yeah.
So we were still in that headspace where we were like willing to go out on a limb for things like that. Because you're right. If we met now, like I don't know if I'd be as willing.
Yeah, like I could totally do like within my province.
Yeah.
But if it was like,
within the province.
Hey, are you going to move to Toronto? Like, or am I going to move to Brazil?
Yeah.
Like I'm going to always be, well, like I can't get a job in Brazil. So like, I don't know what I would do there. So unless you're a millionaire in Brazil listening to this podcast and you want to marry me.
I was chatting with a friend of mine who's going on Birthright, and she was telling me that there's this like ongoing joke that people who go on Birthright meet an Israeli soldier, and she's like heard of like people who end up living in Israel because they marry their Israeli soldier. Have you heard
okay,
of
I have not heard that, but I have heard of people like meeting other people on the Birthright trip that they end
also
up
Canadian. Okay.
Yeah, and then like it's worked out that way.
I know. It sounds like Birthright is a really good matchmaker.
I know.
Like,
well, I also think it has to do with like if you are someone who is like, obviously there's people that go on it that like aren't really religious and go on it for the free trip, but there is a lot of people that are like, I would ideally like to marry someone who is Jewish.
Yeah.
And
totally.
like, I mean, you can go on JSwipe or whatever the app is called for Jewish people, but
I didn't know that existed.
I feel like it's easier to meet people in person always if you're like in that situation. You're with like a bunch of young people that are obviously Jewish. So
yeah. Okay, so I am a big fan of The Bachelor, and I was reading this paper that was like part of the equation about why people fall so deeply, air quotes, in love on The Bachelor is because a lot of the show is travel. So they're traveling to different locations, and when you fall in love while traveling, it's much more like sensational because you're experiencing new things together, and that promotes bonding. And I thought that was so interesting.
I agree with that. Like, and because even that third summer that I was in Spain, and I said I had like a boyfriend that I dated for a while after, like I remember feeling like I was like so in love, and it was like sped up so quickly. Yeah. Because we were in Spain and we basically like lived together at this camp, and then you come home and you're back to reality and you're like, oh, we don't even live in the same city. And all of a sudden, like, real life comes into play. And it's like, I'm a college student. You're like a full-time professional. Like, it's just, there's like all these other stuff that comes in, but you're traveling and you're not even thinking about anything else other than like experiencing where you are. And it brings out like a whole different side of you, and probably the best side of you, because who's not great on vacation?
Yeah.
So I can see that. And
Yeah,
also
me
that
too.
they like put you in a house and you're not allowed on your phone or like to read anything or like a newspaper. They probably go like a little bit crazy.
All you can do is like think about The Bachelor.
Yeah,
Literally all you can do.
I envision there's just like pictures on the wall. Like it's like subliminal messaging and like make you fall in love with this guy.
So I think it'd be really funny if some of our listeners shared with us some of their travel stories, travel and love stories. So guys, please write us or call in. You can call in through the Facebook page, or tell us on Instagram about how you fell in love or didn't fall in love, or how you, I don't know, had sex with someone while traveling.
In a broom closet or on a boat.
Yeah.
Other
I'm finding
weird
you.
places.
I need to know how that story ended. Thanks so much, Lauren, for coming on the podcast today.
Thank you.
Do you want to plug your projects again?
Oh gosh, I have so many. Okay,
List 'em off.
well, you can find Somebody Date Us at Somebody Date Us, basically anywhere.
Yep.
You can find my travel blog at Twirl the Globe anywhere. I picked names that were easy to find purposely.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's me. Come follow me.
Thanks, Katie, for making us sound profesh. And shout out to Motion Array for the cool little music bits you're hearing. If you want to get in touch with us, you can find us on Instagram and Twitter at alpacamybagspod or on our website, alpacamybags.ca. And if you like what you're hearing, let us know by reviewing the podcast. You can also let us know if you don't like it. That's cool too. And remember to subscribe while you're at it. So every subscription and review helps us to continue and make the show better and seriously helps boost the podcast on the charts. And remember to tune in every other Wednesday for more episodes. I hope y'all get to unpack your bags soon. Until next time.